Hello and welcome viewers to this new edition of Conclusive Remark, a joint initiative of JNVLIVE and DATELINE Gujarat, which is accessible on the YouTube handle Talk Economics with Dr. Vyas. We're going to speak today on the middle income economy. The subject has been much into the storm since one of the government officials talked about it. And we have with us one of the eminent speakers, Dr. JAY NARAYAN VYAS. He does not need any introduction, but a thinker, statesman and economist. We'll talk today, we'll completely dissect and bisect this term middle income economy as far as it goes into the context globally and in India. Dr. Vyas, this terminology of middle income economy has much been into debate and discussion. Of course, there had been some election season and it was lost for a while, but it stopped at that point, and again, we are trying to connect
this all came into discussion.
Yes.
When one of the economic advisors of the government of India,
Yes.
after leaving, and the greatness of these babus are that till they are there, most of the time they keep on telling us something, and when they are away from it, when they leave the job, I think recently Arvind Subramaniam also made a statement.
True.
Then all the wisdom dawns upon them, and then they start the critics and independent observers.
Sure.
So in that bout of becoming an independent observer, somebody who left the Ministry of, somebody who left the government of India said that India seems to be in a middle income trap. The Indian economy seems to be in a
middle income trap. Yes.
So now, what is it? The middle income trap is something where you stop growing.
Okay.
You are growing, you make progress, your GDP grows, GNP grows, there is a reasonable growth rate, and then at some point of time, you find that there is a drag and you have stopped clicking that growth.
You stop clicking that growth.
Now that is not uncommon. Even when we became independent,
yes,
for many long years, almost 3 decades, we were branded as a Hindu rate of growth.
True.
4%, 3.5%.
A moderate growth rate, what you can call it.
It was not even moderate, I would say that. But then we were labeled that our economy has a low rate economy, and the rate of growth that was there, 3.4 to 4% around, was branded as Hindu rate of growth. From there, we saw the liberalization coming up, and thereafter the economy started growing and clicking the rate of growth which was much higher than the earlier rate of growth of 4% or so.
True.
So then 7.5%, at times 8% became something which we started becoming sort of accustomed. Till last 2 years,
yes,
where again we are in the regime, post the GST and demonetization, we are talking about growth rates which are less than 6%. And now this gentleman has virtually thrown a bombshell, saying that even these growth rates are
not achievable or possible.
No, not achievable. No, these growth rates are doctored.
Okay.
That's the worst part of it. So in that scenario, the issue is that India, which was growing, if you look at the long-term economy of India, from almost beginning of the Christ year,
okay,
till 1820, India and China were two major countries which accounted for almost more than half the global
economy.
Then 1820 around, the Europe started rising, the Latin America started rising, and we then had gone down continuously post mechanical era.
True.
Post mechanization era.
Yes.
When machines started substituting man, when steam engine was invented, when electricity was invented.
deterioration of
and the
economic started.
technology which was acquired in these countries, they had an upper hand over anybody else. And till 1979, when India and China put together, did not click even 10%.
But it was largely the production was out due to the mechanization.
Mechanization, value
delivering the
addition
world
elsewhere,
markets.
value addition elsewhere.
And there was innovation somewhere. So.
Colonization also, because since India was colonized, certain things were not permitted to grow here.
Yeah, true.
So I think that was the time when we became independent. We started writing our first 5-year plan. We were looking at low growth rates because our infrastructure was not there in place. Capital market was not developed. The technical manpower that you need was not there. The technology that you may need for promoting or propelling this kind of growth was not there. And even beyond that, our readiness to digest those technologies, even if they were provided by some countries, was not there.
Not there. I mean, our receptivity was not there.
As a result, the first phase of growth, that from a country which was importing virtually from pin to piano everything, where even matchboxes were rationed and cigarette lighters were smuggled.
Yes.
We came to become a country which is 8th or 7th industrialized country on the globe. We have now capabilities to manufacture supercomputers, we have space capabilities, we have atomic energy capabilities, and we can manufacture so many complicated machines. We are one of the leading countries which is manufacturing pharmaceuticals. In terms of volume, we are third largest in pharmaceuticals, maybe value we are 13th. And so many other things, including up to software and IT industry. India has made its mark. We sent a mission on Mars as the first attempt. Now, these are our technological capabilities, these are our infrastructure development as far as our industrial base is concerned. But that growth that we were clicking, it appears that is coming to some kind of a resistance. And this is not, let me tell you that there is nothing to shy about it.
True.
I was just going through the World Bank report, and it says that out of only 13 out of 101 countries deemed to be middle income countries in 1960 have graduated as high income levels in 2011.
It's only 13 countries out of 200 and
out of 101.
101
out of 101 have graduated. So
it's basically a kind of 10-13%.
There is a drag. It's very easy to go up to the income ranges or GNI per capita ranges of around $8,500 to $18,500. That is middle income growth range. But to go into or graduate into the higher range is not something that easy, and therefore if India is today struggling to break that threshold from a middle income economy, which is today, if you look at the per capita income, which was at constant prices 8,889 in 1960-61 to 1,12,835 in 2017-18 as per the economic
almost
survey.
10 times the growth.
Yes.
In you may call it 40-50 years.
So it's that growth. And especially the growth which took place in the years beyond 2000. If you look at till 2000, the per capita income was around 14,330. Nothing much. From that, it has multiplied to lakh and 12,000. So it is not it is last 2 decades that has heralded India
given a threshold basically
into the income levels which were hitherto not seen by us.
True.
And having come to that level, then when you are there, obviously you expect that your GDP will grow at the same rate of 8.5 or kind of that. That doesn't happen. Today, if you look at size of the GNP per the price parity basis per capita, the United States, which is 9th rank in the world, has 61,120. Germany 53,660. Australia 48,050. And then come to China, it is 16,800, and India 6,950, just slightly above Pakistan, which is 5,840.
So we are not at that levels actually, if you see it.
Because of your population.
Because of the population.
You know, your per capita GNP, you are, despite the fact that you are, you know, going towards, if you consider that India's growth, just trying to look at it, I brought this table here for the discussion, that if you look at top 10 countries by nominal GDP over the past decades using price purchase parity method, the size of the economy in terms of PPP, because that's the correct way of comparison.
That's the correct way of measuring.
So in 1990, India was 0.9 trillion US dollars. From there, and it was placed below UK. So USA, Japan, Germany, Italy, China, France, Brazil, UK and India. Then come 2000, it has gone up to $2.1 trillion.
That is in 10 years time.
Yes, 10 years time, and it is number 5th. Then come 2010, it has gone to number 3 position with USA $14.9 trillion, China $12.4 trillion, and India $5.3 trillion. Then come to 2020, China $29.9 trillion, USA $22.2 trillion, and India $13.2. But then the projections indicate that by 2030, when China touches 64.2 trillion US dollars, India would be second largest economy with 46 in the world with 46.3 trillion US dollars, and US will follow India at 31 trillion US dollars.
Oh, brilliant!
So this could happen. See, don't you know, there are
the horses.
No, there are 3 kind of lies, you know, as I always have been saying, that white lies, plain lies and statistics.
Dr. Vyas, you know, when you say 2030, the second largest economy, what are the thrust areas where India really needs to focus?
No, before that,
break this middle income economy trap.
Yes, before that you should know why and which are the factors that you need to sort of conquer or overcome to break this, break free from these shackles. So, which are the possible causes of middle income trap? Let us understand. The first is rising wages and unit labor costs, which is the story of the day in India also. The second is the surplus supply of labor dwindles. Labor migration can run dry, including rural-urban movement. This is one of the fallout negative effects of that poverty alleviation plan or schemes under which you are giving certain days fixed work
and money to them.
Manarega, what you call it. So this is third reason. The third is demographic transition model, falling natural population growth, that is not happening here. So it's not applicable to us. Gains in productivity growth slowdown, which is one thing India should be worried about. We have a lot of labor, but when it comes to in some of the labor competitive areas, like Bangladesh and Ceylon compete us in terms of ready-made garment exports.
In textiles,
because per unit wage cost in those countries, because of the productivity of the labor, is much lower compared to what you have in India. So this is where, you know, you will have to improve upon the per unit wage cost, per unit of GDP produced or per unit of GNP produced. The wage cost per unit, I think, has to go down substantially, or productivity has to increase substantially.
Like as they say, Bangladesh is likely to be ahead in per capita GDP when some projections.
It's bound to be. India, in terms of per capita GDP, is at the bottom of the table. We are 130
because of the population, obviously.
Because of the population. So that
it's
is
just
not,
that we might be the second largest GDP by 2030.
yes,
but there are some
per capita. When you take the per capita GDP, we are at the bottom of the table.
True.
Then countries may start to age before they get rich. So
Okay.
That is a fatigue.
That is a fatigue.
You know, there is always a growth fatigue. So we may start getting sort of tired of the growth fatigue.
The kind of 24/7 work.
Maybe. Then early growth tends to be input.
No, but why I say this 24/7? If you see today's generation,
Yes.
where it is struggling, it's interesting.
Yes.
Their income levels are not that great. Their expenses are pretty high, and they don't have time because
that
they
is-
are
that is-
managing lots of things in excess,
No,
including
that
your
is-
Netflixes and your
No,
Amazon.
that is not relevant here.
Okay.
This is different and more serious a subject.
Okay.
We have to understand the earlier growth trends because we were at a flat bottom. Earlier growth trends were helped by the input driven rather than productivity driven. They were because of better quality machines, because of the raw material availability, so and so
But when
forth.
I see that timeline
the size
graph-
of economy,
Yeah.
you know,
When
I have seen
Yes.
Baroda Rayon getting a license for the fiber of around 6 ton.
Okay.
And then Reliance setting up 100,000 tons capacity. So
that's
the
the
size
scale of economy has changed.
IPCL had 30,000 tons ethylene capacity. And now I think the Reliance will talk about 1 million ton or
It's a scale of economy.
Scale of economy. The technology needs to become more sophisticated.
But when you put the light on the numbers, you know, in terms of the number of years and the way the PPP has increased
Yes.
in India, and specifically the turnaround from 2000.
Yes.
Do you see that the way the doors of globalization were opened, that also somewhere gave some kind of a thrust?
No, you could not have escaped it. Don't think I'm not worried about globalization.
No, but do you see that had given some thrust to the
not
economy?
the list. It might have given some thrust to the economy, but exactly pinpointing it for only globalization, no. It was the liberalization I would
The
rather use the
liberalization.
word.
India's liberalization policy.
India's liberalization of the policy, making foreign investments easier, making the imports easier,
Removing the license Raj and everything.
Yes, you know, earlier there was 1956 Industrial Development and Regulation Act,
True.
which was substantially liberalized. All these things, I think, contributed.
Those reforms have helped basically to grow.
That helped.
To take that growth path and growth trajectory. basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Then the another thing which should be bothering India is low R&D expenses.
Yeah.
We are one of the lowest R&D expenses countries in the world. So if we want to really compete and get into the higher income bracket, we will have to have products which are more value added. And that cannot happen. You know, the ideal example is pharmaceuticals.
Precisely.
You are third in terms of volume in the world, but you are 13th in terms of value. So, if you are still going to be used up for the low value products, you shall continue to be dragging your feet.
So there is a fantastic saying in the pharma industry. You know, the kind of money what the pharma sector today has in India.
Yes.
Either it is research or it is development. Both can't go hand in hand. That's what they say.
No, you know, you have to understand that innovation is much harder
Much harder.
than copying.
True.
As it is done in most of the cases.
Most of the cases.
Say for example,
Surviving on the expired patents actually. The
no,
point is
not
that.
really. You don't then get pinned down only to pharmaceuticals.
Okay.
Look at any industry. The technology transfer for them means flicking away somebody's chemist or somebody's key engineer, and he comes with the knowledge, and that is technology.
So that's a technology transfer.
That is technology transfer. Now that cannot work. Innovation is much more different than copying.
Yes.
So we will have to learn to spend more on research and get into the product zones which are real cream value added products. Institutional failures, that is ideal example. Gujarat State Financial Corporation, if you talk about Gujarat, almost all everywhere these SFCs which were earlier created by the act of the parliament, they have disappeared.
The four wheels of economy of Gujarat, what you call the GIs.
Forget of Gujarat. Normal even the SFCs were created by the act of the parliament.
Okay.
IDCs or IICs were created as companies. Now that whole infrastructure which was created to promote industry, maybe it outlived its utility.
Basically, the state-funded corporations which were there.
They were there because it was easier for a local entrepreneur to go there and get his things through, because they
Kind of a one-window clearance.
And the language problem.
True.
So they would understand his language, they will understand his culture, they'll be able to understand his psyche.
True.
Now he is dealing with somebody who is foreign and who has nothing much to do with comes from some other state. Whether this unit comes up or doesn't come up is not his concern. So that personal involvement is not there. So these are some of the issues, including the credit bubble which has busted.
Sure.
Banks today are saddled with huge assets,
Debt burdens, basically.
debt burden. So now,
asset which nobody is ready to buy. The worst part is that.
Now, on one hand, that source of credit has dried off. On the other hand, the stock market, where it was easier to raise money for small and medium scale issues, that has now almost become impossible. The regulatory authorities like SEBI are becoming tighter and tighter on most of the companies which are getting through the stock market route. So the foreign funding which was possible earlier, that also has been now made very difficult. So credit, and finally the qualified manpower.
Precisely.
You have manpower, you are having large number of people who are maybe qualified by way of degrees but not qualified by way of competence. So they are not readily employable. Almost 40% of the graduates,
True.
and worst is the engineering graduates,
Yes.
who are coming out of their colleges or universities are not readily employable.
True.
So these are the issues which...
So these are the traps basically which are holding India as a middle class.
This is only part of the story.
Yeah.
Then the government will have to in sort of pump in huge funds to promote the infrastructure growth and promote the funding of these kind of projects that is required, because government by and large, as far as core sector is concerned, is the major player. If the railways do not expand,
Unless and until the government does not get involved somewhere, you may put up a hotel, but if you don't have a road connectivity on that beach, it doesn't work.
You will need huge investments in infrastructure.
Very true.
So if to break this middle income drag, I would say, or middle income locking up
true.
of Indian economy and making them grow is not going to be easy. And as an economist, I was just going through another analysis which is more connected with the probability and mathematics, which says that employment elasticity index, which has come to zero. Now, that would mean that you will have your GDP increase but not concomitant
not the jobs.
Employment increase. This is one. Second, your agriculture is going to face problem because it is becoming more and more non-remunerative for the farmer.
Yeah.
Farmer is likely to move away from agriculture. No amount of what support prices you give to farmer will help. And because of that, rural economy, which by and large today employs about 55% of the workforce and which consumes almost same 55% of the goods and services produced in this country, is going to come under a severe strain.
Precisely.
In that situation, to keep growing and to keep the kind of the flywheel in motion is not going to be easy. So that middle income group trap or middle income economy trap, better we accept it
So, but then you bring to a discussion to a fantastic pivotal point when you say that the involvement of government has to come. There has to be a large fund. There has to be a thrust areas in several putting up kind of schemes to address these issues.
Policies also.
I mean
The policies which are investment friendly.
yeah. So the pitfalls which are there trapping the India today in the middle income economy class. How do you bring it out? But then today, what I see is the government's biggest challenge is to trigger the demand. Employment is not there, so the disposable income which was there on the hands, that is somewhere diminishing. How do you see this being addressed?
That is not that serious an issue as much.
Okay.
You have the government creating an environment which will create investable surplus.
Okay.
So your taxation policies which will permit more funds which are investable, you're regulating the stock market and other things, taking care of the investors' interests so that they are able to, or they are motivated to invest there. They are not talking about small things. You need huge funds.
Sure.
And if you need huge funds and if you need to cater to one of the single largest free market anywhere in the world, you have the demand at home. It is at your doorstep. So when people say that we are not very much in the world trade or export business, our share being hardly less than 2%, I'm not worried about. You have a huge domestic demand.
Which you need to address.
And
when you
you
talk
have to
of
keep it alive.
Yeah, but when you talk of investment and you see that the huge investments have to come in, the government has to give the thrust in those areas. The biggest question is that the investments are being taxed at 66%, the salaries are being taxed at 33%. So how do you see an investor would be more wood to bring in more investment?
This is what I said.
A private investment or a foreign investment?
That is what I said, that you will need, number one, regulatory policies investment friendly.
Okay.
First thing.
Okay.
Rather than the tax sleuths looking at everybody as a chore or everybody as a thief, they will have to honor those who are creating employment opportunities. Look at United States. If you invest $1 million there, you are given the visa and the green card facility.
True.
So we will have to learn from this that that as many as 7,000 people last year went out of India. Now you multiply
27,000 million.
7,000 million.
True.
Only on a lowest basis. Then you're talking about 7,000 million. That means 70 billion rupees $70 billion going out of India.
True.
Now, can you afford that?
I mean, because those are the taxpayers to your nation, and they are moving away from you.
Yes. So it is investment is not something which comes only because of one reason. You need security, you need safety, you need labor policies which are friendly, you need taxation policies which permit you to create wealth, you need government approvals coming through, ease of doing business, which the Prime Minister is often talking about, in place, and at the end you need absolute comfort where you feel that in this country my investment on long-term basis is safe, the laws are stable, laws are friendly, the taxation is not that heavy, the promises which are made in one budget are carried through all
as a policy for the economy.
All these things put together, unless you do that, breaking these shackles of Indian economy getting trapped into middle income
economy
shackles is not going to be easy. And understand one thing, that between the period 1960 and 2011, how many years? 51 years. If 51 years in the world, only 13 countries out of 101 could break these shackles, India, with the kind of population load that we have, we must understand the gravity of the issue and also the dimension of the challenge. So that is where lies the answer.
This brings to a kind of a conclusion, but Dr. Vyas, do you see that the government will really, the liberalization was the policy which gave a thrust, and the figures are speaking, the numbers are speaking. How do you see this government coming out with a policy which can really, trigger this thing. And if you're talking 2030 as the second largest economy, as you said, the GDP will grow, but jobs will be there or not is a big question. So how do you see this,
See, again,
what
there
kind
is-
of a policy outlook the government really needs to have? Let's say the basic 1, 2, 3 to address. Do you see that the taxation has to be balanced somewhere?
I am not worried about jobs,
Okay.
because there will be transformation from employment to self-employment.
Okay.
Because ultimately service sector creates more entrepreneurs and self-employed people rather than those which are structurally employed as clerks and
True.
like of that. That is number one. Number two, really you said what I agree with you is that you need policies which promotes investments and which creates comfort that no, my money is safe in this country.
Because
So you have to have law and order in place. First thing,
Yes.
law and order in place. You can't afford agitations every second day. You can't afford the Naxalism and all these kind of violent activities every second day. You can't afford the veiled threats of war every second day. You must have a long-term comfort that no, in this country I am comfortable and I will invest.
No, because why I see this, what kind of a policy outlook do you see as an economist or a thinker? Because what I
The
see,
government is going to be caught into a cobweb. It is not going to be
why I
easier
ask this
for them.
question? Why I ask this question? Because since the guard has changed since 2014, I don't see a major policy change except Ayushman Bharat. Ayushman Bharat also a little bit refined kind of a health policy, what I see. But otherwise, most of the policies of the UPA government have continued.
No, forget about UPA, NPA or any kind
But
of
why?
PS.
I mean, no.
But
What's the
you
outlook
need
see?
a government
Yes.
which understands the financial policy and which is committed to create wealth. If you create wealth, if you build up confidence amongst the investor, if there is ease of doing business, if law and order situation is proper, if there are no violent agitations, no threat of war, no divisive kind of
Politics and policies,
politics every second day, then this will happen. If you don't do it, then
The investor confidence has to come in,
Yes.
be it a global investor or a local investor.
yes.
This brings us to a conclusive remark of this discussion in particular. Economy is kind of a jigsaw puzzle, and you saw Dr. Vyas putting the jigsaw pieces in a very granulated manner and trying to explain that what are the bottlenecks and how the government really needs to address this, how the people really need to address this. What are the point of fatigue when you talk of the middle income economy trap in which India is falling? It's a kind of fatigue which has been kind of there in the growth of India. And if you're talking India to be the second largest nation in terms of GDP after China in 2030, these are the areas where the government needs to go aggressive, build in a kind of investor confidence, be it a local investor or a global investor who is keen to invest in India and be a part of this India growth story. We'll continue bringing such more and more discussions, try to granulate the complex subject of economy. Do stay tuned on the YouTube handle Speak or Talk Economics with Dr. Jay Narayan Vyas, and do keep on sending us your suggestions. With this, I bounce it to Dr. Vyas to give his conclusive remark on the same.
Now, soon we are going to have, friends, the budget of the new government. And I think next episode, we will talk to you about the compulsions on the part of the government and expectations on the part of the people, industry, and all stakeholders out of the budget that is going to be presented by Nirmala Sitharaman. I think we hold our fingers crossed. We
Yes.
want high GDP growth. Still, we know that it is not taking place. We want huge investable surplus. How and from where we are going to get it? We want economy to be buoyant. We want stock market to be booming. So many things. If that happens, then I think Indian economy is poised to break the shackles of this middle income economic trap. If it doesn't, then, well, God bless us. Let's wait for the finance minister on that day of budget to tell us which way the present government and the finance minister in particular want us to go. Bye till then. See you next time with the expectations of the budget 2019. Thank you.
Thank you.